till I can't speak, and everybody in this room is a stranger to me. I drink till I think I might die. Honestly, that would be fine. That would be fine. Please look after my mom. Keep her away from home. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell Daddy did everything right. That it has been a delight being chosen. It's gonna be it's gonna be like this forever, so throw me a star, prove you're not far away.
Cool, thanks. So, I guess I sort of wanted to open up with just a moment's silence for the still suffering addict out there, and anyone who's going to pick up for the first time today, and for those that we've lost. Cool, thank you. So I guess when I was thinking about this meeting, I sort of I was thinking about the thing like, I'm not sure if I believe it or not, but you hear it a lot that people saying that they were born with this affliction, and I guess I thought back to before I had a drink or had a drug, and as a kid, I was a real deep thinker, real overthinker. I thought a lot about, I wanted to fit in, but I never felt like I did. Even though I was no different to the people that I was looking at and wanted to be like, I still just didn't feel comfortable in any circle. I remember when I was super young, like I would still just, like lollies and stuff like that. And I remember when my mum was pregnant with my sister, so I would have been maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I stole a chocolate from the shop, and I brought it out to mum, and like I said to her, I gave it to her, and I said, this is for having another baby. And I just think back then, even that sort of manipulation was already there, because in my head I thought, oh, she's going to give me this chocolate back, but if I say that it's for her, I won't get in trouble. I'll get away with it, which I didn't. Mum made me go back in and apologise, but I guess like, from a young age, like that sort of the lying and the manipulation was already there well before the drugs and alcohol were. I guess I really didn't have a good self-image when I was at school. I was overweight and I wasn't sporty, and I grew up in a little town where sport was sort of everything, and I hated it. My dad was really good at football, and so, my last name, my surname was well known around town, and when I would tell people my name, they would say, oh, you're Brenton's son, and you know, I hated the footy thing, but I did it for years because my dad I don't think he would have cared either way, but I felt like I needed to be good at football to, I don't know, get some kind of, reaction or praise or whatever. It's just what everyone did in my town. So I did that for as long as I could handle it. And I guess like when I discovered music, I found something that I just fell in love with immediately. And I found that was another way that I could, like, I loved music. I wanted to create music, but I also realized that I could use music to be popular and to fit in and to get girls and that sort of thing. So as soon as I realized I could play music and write music and do that sort of thing, that's what I did. And I fucked the footy off, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with music and how that could elevate my status. And, you know, even though I did love it, there was always that other side to it, and it was always a competition for me. I wanted to be the best drummer in the gigs that we played, and I would obsess over every fucking aspect of the gig. I really always wanted to push the limits, and music is a massive part of my life. And I guess, you know, fast forwarding to, you know, I'm the eldest of four, and my mum especially I wasn't allowed to go out and do anything. I wasn't ever I didn't start drinking early, or, you know, I think I was like 17 when I had my first drink. And the way that we drank in my circle of friends was just, you drank hard to get fucked up, and that's all there was to it. We just drank till we were sick, and that was a good night. And we used to get like 4 packs of pre-mixed sort of bourbon and cola and stuff like that, and we'd get the older kids to buy it for us, and we couldn't go anywhere, so we'd just either go to house parties or, you know, just walk around town and just get smashed. And the more smashed, the better, you know. I guess I remember the first time I drank box wine, I was at a party and I was completely wasted, and it's really blurry, but I know it was a really rainy night, and this is kind of a dopey. I remember getting home and it was pouring with rain, and I had like a white hoodie on, and I couldn't walk, and I fell over in the mud and all this shit, and then that's sort of all I can remember. And I remember waking up the next morning and I was in my bed and I was naked, and there was just vomit everywhere. And I couldn't remember anything. Like, I could not remember anything. And I went outside and all my clothes were on the balcony of my house, and I just sort of waited for Mum to wake up and tell me what had happened. And she'd found me outside, passed out in the rain, and had to put me to bed. So and that's just how I did it. I wanted everyone to be talking about me at school the next Monday after the weekend. As we got older, I just, I didn't really get into drugs until I left school. There was a little bit of weed here and there, but for me, like, drugs were something that would kill me. Like, if I had an ecstasy tablet, if I had any kind of drug except for weed, I would die. That's how I viewed drugs. If I took drugs, I was going to die for sure. So I just got really drunk. I remember being at a party at my mate's house, and there was sort of an outside area with a fire and an inside area, and I was inside for a while and drinking scotch and for a couple of hours, and nearly finished the bottle and decided to go outside and open the door, and as soon as the air hit me, I just fucking passed out, and I sort of came to, and there were like 6 guys looking over me and like, oh my God, Dylan, oh no, and I'd landed on my glass. I'd smashed the glass into my face, and I was so fucking lucky I didn't lose an eye or, you know, cut my throat. I had to have about 13 stitches in my head, and I just thought it was a big joke. Like I got to the hospital, they took me to hospital, and I was just being a complete fool and told the doctor I didn't want the local anaesthetic, and lucky my friends were with me, and they talked me into getting it, and they stitched my face up, and I had blood all over my clothes, and I was just a fucking wreck. And I went back out. I went out to the pub that night, and, you know, and my face was like swelled up and stitches, and it was, but everyone was talking about it on Monday, and, you know, that's all that mattered to me. So I guess drugs for me came into it with weed. It took me a long time to sort of learn how to smoke properly, and the way I learned to smoke weed was with bongs, and me and all my mates, we would chop up tobacco with it, and you sort of try to pull that cone, and I could never do it. I would smoke it like a pipe and take little hits, and it, you know, I'd get high as fuck, but my mates would be on me, give me shit about it, that, you know, you've got to pull it. And I still remember the first time I pulled the cone properly, and it just fucking rocked me. And I just remember so clearly where I was. We were parked outside of a tennis court, and I just remember like, right, that's, you know, it's that story of like when you arrive, you're like, fuck, that's how it's supposed to go, you know, because you get high afterwards, but also that feeling of, you know, clearing the piece, and you blow out that smoke, and it's just sort of that nice little moment. And I fucking loved weed. I loved getting stoned. I just wanted to be stoned all the time. So, you know, you add that other element of weed with your drinking, and I was just fucking always wasted, and just a mess, like vomiting, and I'd pass out as well. I'd pass out all the time, just black out and wake up, and I'd smash my head so many times. And I never really, I think when I think back on it, because that happened the whole way through my using, that would happen all the time, and I think it was honestly like my body just saying I've had enough, and you've got to stop, you've got to slow down, and this is the only way that I can make it happen, is to shut your whole body down. I just couldn't handle it anymore. And so I remember, I guess the first, you know, besides weed, the first hard drug I tried was ecstasy. I was from a small country town, but I'd come to Adelaide to see Blink 182, and the guy that I came with was like, we were sort of pre-drinking, and he said, do you want to try a pill tonight? And I was fucking terrified, because I was like, I'll probably overdose and die, but I wanted to be cool. I wanted to do what all my friends were doing, and so I did. And I remember having that pill, and I don't know if I was inside of my head too much or whatever, but I just remember it didn't really work for me very well. It was real, like, I just got paranoid, and it sort of ruined the whole gig for me. And yeah, it wasn't like most of my ecstasy experiences. It was really strange. But I didn't die. So, you know, like everything that my mum had told me about drugs, because I didn't die from that pill, was a lie. And I was off. It was fucking on from there. And anytime there were any other drugs, you know, I was never around heroin, but I'd say that was the one drug that I probably would never have tried at that point in my life. Anything else, I was fucking into it, and I wanted to go hard. If someone was double dropping, I wanted to do that as well. I guess while this was all sort of going on, the band that I was in around my town became really sort of more popular. We were younger kids compared to the rest of the band, and we were all sort of, you know, fairly good at what we did. And I think the older popular bands were kind of impressed with these young kids that were good at their instruments and really tight live. And you know, in our little circle in our country town, we were like fucking rock stars, man. And I never paid for any drugs. I never paid for drinks. It was crazy. Like it was honestly like being famous. And that's all I ever wanted, was to be Daniel Johns, to be Kurt Cobain. And as soon as I got it, it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted to be on TV, or to take that next step. I wanted to be better than all those bands that were helping us out and that were my really close friends. But I would talk shit about any other band if someone was doing it, because I wanted my band to be on everyone's lips. I didn't want anyone to think that there was a better band in our town than mine. There was a better drummer in my town than me, or songwriter, or I wanted to be number one. And I didn't care what I had to do or who I had to talk shit about to be number one. And, you know, at this point we were kids. I wasn't even 18 really, and I was taking heaps of drugs. We'd walk off stage. We wouldn't even get off stage. We'd have guys run up on stage while we were playing and put pills in our mouth. And, you know, this point of my life, it was mostly ecstasy and speed, like wet speed. Like I never really smoked ice, we call it here, or it was just that, you know, the wet gear. And I didn't really like speed anyway, but I'd just have enough that would level me out and let me party as long as the party was on. And I would always find the people still partying, and I never wanted to stop. You know, like most of these gigs were sort of an hour drive away from where I actually lived, my town. And I didn't have a license. And if I was still partying and the rest of the band were going back home, I would just stay. And I'd have no fucking plan. There was no forethought. There was no, if I wasn't done partying, I'll fucking deal with how I get home later. I had no fucking job. I didn't really give a fuck. Like if I was partying, even if I was the only one partying and everyone else was going to bed, and I knew that in probably half an hour the party would be over, I'd still choose to fucking stay there. I never wanted the party to end, because my life, when I wasn't partying and when I wasn't that rock star, was so fucking shit. I had no ambition, and I was lazy. I didn't, you know, I hardly worked. And when I was in the band, I didn't have to have money. I didn't have to have a job or anything like that, because I was being fed drugs because I was a rock star, you know, and I was cool, and I never wanted that shit to end, but it has to at some point, and then I have to go back and wait for the next time, you know, that there's a gig of stuff like that. And you know, I moved to Adelaide after I graduated high school, and I started uni, and I guess I did really well at uni, actually. For like the first semester, I was getting really good grades, and I'd stopped smoking weed and was just sort of, I wasn't really taking many drugs either. I was just kind of drinking. I was on a scholarship, so I had money. I didn't have to work. And then there was a guy that I lived with that smoked weed, and I think like I'd left weed alone for a little bit, and then started smoking with him, and that's when the weed really fucking got a hold of me. Like I just started smoking all day, every day. I started like copying, pasting my assessments and flunking out of uni, and I just didn't give a fuck. Like I just didn't care. I lost the scholarship, and I moved back home for sort of half a year, and then I moved to Adelaide, and I was living with my brother and another guy, and I was still at uni, but I wasn't going to class, and I was just living for you know, the weekend, and everyone else, like I'd be home all day smoking weed, and looking for any excuse any single night of the week to get wasted. And I was a thief. I used to steal from everyone all the time. You know, I would convince myself so quickly in my head that, not that it was okay, but if I considered it, I was doing it. Like there was no fucking thinking about things twice. I just stole from everyone. You know, my brother, I stole money from my brother and from my friends, and I stole drugs, and you know, word got around real quick. Like no one ever confronted me about it, but I knew that everyone knew that I was stealing, and I'm really fucking lucky I didn't get my head kicked in, you know, like I never got caught in the act, but I got called out a couple of times, and I was lucky I had, you know, good friends that are probably, you know, these days I'm a bit kinder to myself, but those days I didn't deserve the friends that I had. They were so forgiving, and it was just because I was a good guy. Apart from that shit, like it wasn't because I was an addict or anything like that, because I guess at that point, not that I didn't know, but I hadn't thought about, you know, I was a kid, like this is what we do. We just get wasted, and yeah, there's a lot of, you know, I need the steps these days. Stealing is fucking hell. There's so much guilt attached to that, and it makes me feel sick. And I remember when I, like, towards the end of my using, I would fucking think back to times that I'd stolen from friends, and just thought, man, like, and add things to that story, like getting caught and stuff like that. And it just was it was a horrible time, dark time, and it's something that, you know I need the steps with. There's certain things that really weigh heavily on me, and stealing from people is one of them. I guess. So I've got written in my notes, the first girl that I ever sort of fell in love with, I remember chasing her for ages, and she was super hot, and she sort of, you know, I managed to get her, and we were together for a while, and I was a mess. You know, I wasn't working. I was just a bum. Like, I just didn't do anything, and her parents fucking hated me, and I was this bad rock star kid that, and I loved that. I loved that she loved me and her parents couldn't convince her otherwise. I fucking loved it, man. I remember I've got written down, because it's a big, when I was writing my notes, it sort of dawned on me, her name, at her 21st, I got wrecked, and I just was a big fucking embarrassment. I was paralytic and I was vomiting everywhere, and I woke up the next morning next to her in bed, and I don't know, probably tried to have sex with her, and she was like cold as to me, and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, do you remember what you did last night? And I was like, oh fuck. And she told me, and she broke up with me that day. And I remember her saying to me, like, all you wanted to do on my birthday was get wasted. And we went out to dinner with her parents like the night before her birthday party. And I was the same way, because we were at a pub and I was sneaking off to get shots in between my beers, and you know, I was wasted, like. And she said to me, you know, that's all you wanted to do was to drink and get wasted. And one thing that she said with me that's really stuck with me was, she said to me, you know, is that going to be our wedding? And I think, like, I remember when she said it, I was like, give me a fucking break. What do you mean? Like, what are you saying? I'm an alcoholic or something? And she was fucking bang on, man. Like, she was right on the money. And that was years ago. So I just sort of wrote that down because it was so, I hadn't thought about it for so long, but her saying that was just, she was so spot on. I guess, you know, fast forwarding a bit, like I just lived like that for years, just getting wasted and living for the weekend. And I'd get jobs, but I'd just call in sick all the time and work enough days that I could get smashed on the weekend. But I was still just a grub, like a mooch from all my friends. Like, I never had money, but I was always out, and I was always hammered. Like, it's embarrassing. But, so that went on, and then I guess, you know, the band thing was still happening in Adelaide, but it was sort of different. It was, I was in two bands, and I joined another band because it was heavier music, and I was going to watch these bands and watching the drummers and thinking, you know, I'm so much better than these guys, and I need to get in a metal band so I can prove to everyone that I am not just this good drummer in this rock band, that I can smash everyone in this metal scene as well. So I got in a band with some really, really talented guys, and I felt like we played maybe 3 or 4 gigs, and I'd proved to myself that I was better than all these other guys, and I wasn't interested anymore. I just wanted to know that I could hold my own against these metal drummers and be the most technical, and have everyone come up to me after the show, and it happened really quickly, and I was bored. So I just got fucked up, and you know, I still managed to pull off playing okay most of the time, and it just got boring. As soon as I got what I wanted, or what I thought I wanted, it was never enough, and I was bored. And you know, not long after I met the mother of my children. She was actually a girl from my town, my hometown, that went to my school for a few years, and she left when she was probably 13 to come to Adelaide. And I saw her on Facebook, and I was like, fuck, Sarah got hot. let's have a crack. And, you know, not long after we were together, and it was really full on, like, you know, young love. And we moved in together really quickly. And she was really different to me. Like, she was really straight. She never touched drugs, and she hardly drank. And I'm not sure how aware she was of how much I was doing. It was sort of like ecstasy and acid and stuff like that. And, you know, I just never come home. Not when she went home anyway. Like, and I guess, yeah, it was really full on. We were really in love. It was good. And, you know, maybe a year later, if that, absolute max, a year later, she was pregnant with our eldest. And when I was writing the notes about this, I was trying to remember how I felt when I heard that news. Like, and there was, because I wasn't ready for a fucking kid, man. Oh my God, I was a kid, like, but I don't remember being super. I just thought someone else would take care of, you know, we can handle this. And I knew that my parents would help me out with anything. And I didn't change the way I lived at all. I didn't slow down with any of my use or drinking. I got worse, if anything. And then, you know, I'd still go out all the time when she was heavily pregnant. I'd just say what I needed to stay in the good books and fuck off and leave her home alone, man, all the time, all the fucking time. I never did anything. I had people around there. I'd bring people back to the house and party on, because if there was no party going on anywhere else and I didn't want to stop, I had to have a party at my place, because continuing to get fucked up was the most important thing. I guess, so yeah, our eldest Sebastian, he arrived in July of 2012, and it was crazy. Like, I was completely in love with him from the first second I saw him. But, you know, like, even just after first seeing my kid, I was like, I need to celebrate, you know? Like, I couldn't wait. I knew that was an excuse to get wasted, like, wet the baby's head. And just, my addiction just, it fucking consumed me. Like, I had this kid in my hands, this beautiful baby, my little boy, and I was still thinking about using, I was still thinking about drinking, you know? And I did. And I continued to do it all the time. I didn't help Sarah with anything. I was just a fucking piece of shit. Like, I was such an asshole to Sarah. I never helped with anything, you know. As long as everyone thought that I was being this fucking super dad on Facebook and all that shit, that's all I cared about. You know, keeping up appearances and making sure that I didn't push Sarah to an edge that she would fall off with Sebastian and not take me with him, you know. Like, I'd do enough that she wouldn't leave me. So, yeah, not long after Seb was born, this is really heavy. My brother, who was a serious addict, with speed and heroin, he had a trip planned for Thailand, and he he flew from my hometown to Adelaide, and he was going to come see me and meet Sebastian before he left. And he didn't, and I knew why. And I was disappointed, but I knew, like, oh, he'll just come and see Seb on the way back. And he overdosed and died in Thailand, so he never came back. He never got to meet Seb. I remember getting the phone call. We were recording a CD at the time, and I woke up my phone was going off at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had like 10 missed calls from my mum, and I was just like, what the fuck what is she calling me for at this time? Like, it didn't even dawn on me, that anything could be wrong. And then I had missed calls from my other brothers and sisters, and Byron, who's 18 months younger than me, I ended up speaking to him because he's in the band, and he told me that Justin had died. And the first thing I did was I went back inside and got a bottle of Jack Daniels and just started drinking. And I knew it wouldn't help, and it was just another excuse. Like, I knew that Justin would, I had very little hope that he would ever get well. He was so sick. He wanted to get well so much, but he just couldn't. He couldn't beat it. He never had that switch, unfortunately. He was just too sick. And I think, like, it was really hard that he died overseas, because it was hard to get any answers of what he'd actually taken and overdosed on and that kind of thing. So that was really hard for me, and it was really hard for me to let go of. And it's still hard for me to let go that he didn't come and see Seb. That's, when I'd started doing my 4th step, that was almost one of the first names that went on there was Justin, because he didn't come and meet Seb and he died. And that's why, that's why I long to get through the steps, is because I need to let go of that. Like, I want to forgive him, because I know that he was sick. But it's hard, because I can see him in my son. When I look at Seb, I can see my brother, and it's fucking brutal. So yeah, I don't know, like, the next 3 years we had 2 more kids, and I was still just the same selfish fucking addict. And I remember, we were out one night, my band, we'd played a show, and we went to the strippers after, and I had, 2 bank accounts at the time, and one of them, this is just before my daughter was born, who's the second child. And that Monday, this is a Saturday night, and that Monday Sarah had a scan to, an ultrasound to see how the baby was doing, and we had money set aside for that, and I spent that all, out in town, and I didn't even think about it. Like I said before, any of that sort of shit, if I considered it, the decision was made. Like, I never ran through shit in my head like, oh, but this. If I considered it, there was no point wasting time on thinking about the consequences, because I knew I was going to do it anyway. So I didn't think about any consequences. I just was like, I will scam someone out of like probably my family out of some money, make up some bullshit story, and I'll just deal with it when I need to, but I need to keep this party running. So Charlie rolled in, and then, I remember the first time I did smoke meth, smoke ice. That was sort of, I knew it wouldn't kill me, but that was all over the news. That was the drug that was fucking scary and dangerous. And I guess a bit sort of below me as well. I was sort of not that kind of junkie. I wasn't a junkie. But I met some dudes and smoked ice, and I didn't, I don't remember it being a good time. And like that, I count myself lucky for that too, because I think if that had got a hold of me, it might have killed me, that shit. But I remember getting super high the first time I smoked it, and getting a call from Sarah. Well, getting a message, and she was like, I think I'm pregnant. And, that meant I am pregnant. There was no, if she thought she was pregnant, she was pregnant. And, this whole time we moved house every year because we couldn't keep up with the rent. Towards the end, we couldn't get another place because we had such bad referrals. And, I had to move. We had to stay in a fucking caravan park for a week, and at this time, like, Seb had some issues and had to get circumcised, and, he got out of hospital and had to come to a fucking a cabin at a fucking caravan park because I was such a piece of shit. And couldn't keep much, like 99% of the issues that Sarah and me and our family had were because of my using. But I just wanted to throw shade at Sarah and deflect. I didn't want to look at that shit because I knew anyway. I knew by this time I was fucked. I knew I was an alcoholic for sure. And a lot of my friends, I had to make new circles of friends because of the stealing and stuff like that. And I guess after Hugo was born, like, my drinking and using sort of took on a whole nother level. And it was more drinking in isolation, every single night, and smoking weed until I was wasted, every night. And, I had 3 kids, and Sarah was coaching sports and stuff, and I just would drink in secret until she left, and then just get fucking smashed and do the absolute bare minimum with the kids. Put them to bed, unshowered, and just so I wouldn't lose my buzz, and I drove with the kids in the car, and there were times where I was fucking wasted and high, and I would leave the kids at home and shoot around the corner to the bottle shop to get more alcohol. And, Hugo's like 2 years old, man. Like, I thought so many times, I was so fucking lucky, like, I never got busted. And and it was that thing again of, if I considered it, oh, imagine if I get caught, imagine this, imagine that. It didn't fucking matter. If I had no alcohol, I'm fucking going. Like, but I love my kids so much, and I'm such a good fucking dad, and it's all just bullshit, because if I need to drink more, I'm out. Like, I'm going to the bottle no matter what. It's only 5 minutes away. Like, they're fucking kids, man. Like, and that just continued and until there was a point where Sarah took Charlie, my daughter, to dancing, and I was paralytic, and I was Sebastian was playing like a video game, and I was throwing up, and Hugo must have only been like 2 or 3, I reckon. And he's behind me, you know, patting my back and asking me if I'm okay, you know, my kid, my baby. And I remember I was passed out on the bed, and I had my phone. I was setting my alarm for like every 5 minutes so that I wouldn't be passed out on the bed when Sarah got back. And that was my first rock bottom, was that. And I said to Sarah the next day, I was like, I think I need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. By this stage, I knew, 100% knew, there was no question that I knew I couldn't drink normally. I never even wanted to drink normally. I knew I was an alcoholic. I knew I was a drug addict. I just didn't care. I was like, fucking oath I am. You know, I wasn't proud of it, but I just didn't give a fuck. I wanted to keep drinking and keep using. And I guess it had just lost all fun. Like, there was nothing fun about it anymore. And so that's when I thought, yeah, I might. You know, my mother's parents were both alcoholics, and my mum's mum, she found the runes before she died, and she died sober. So I thought I'd check it out. So I went to a meeting, and you know, that whole thing again was I'd arrived, and I felt like I'd found the answer. And, you know, was welcomed in there and heard my story from everyone that spoke, and it clicked straight away, and I was into it. Like, I was into recovery, and, you know, I wanted to get sober, but, you know, I think back on it, and it was all like a lot of fucking ego involved. I wanted to share really well, and I wanted everyone to see me getting better, and I wanted to be the one that people spoke about when I wasn't there. And have you seen this new kid that rocked up, and he's really young, and you should hear him share. And I was just so fueled by ego. You know, it's like the band stuff, and it's like everything. Like, my ego is a massive fucking risk in my recovery, and you know, I've got to be aware of my ego in recovery, because I constantly need it to be stroked. Like, and that's when I know that I'm not running right, is when I need all this affirmation and all this, you know, everyone telling me how well I'm getting, rather than me knowing it and me feeling it and wanting to help someone else feel what I am. That's when I know I'm running right, is if I'm doing things in the shadows and making calls and that sort of thing. So I guess I got about 4 months sober, and I just decided to drink. There was no big fucking tragedy or trigger or nothing like that. I just wanted to drink. And there was, you know, I told people around me who I thought needed to hear it that, I think I've got this, you know, like, I can drink normally like a normal person, but that was all bullshit. That was just so they'd leave me alone. I didn't want to drink like that ever. I got a 6-pack of beer, and I thought after 4 months, I'm going to have 3 beers and I'm going to be buzzing. And I drank them all, and it was like I hadn't even stopped. And I was super disappointed. So, you know, the next night I drank 2 bottles of wine and woke up the next morning. I couldn't remember anything. And Sarah took me to work, and I knew I was hungover as a motherfucker. And I was just like, what did I fucking do? And I was just, when she dropped me off, I was just waiting for that message on my phone. And she's like, I think you need to go back to the rooms. And I just asked her, like, what did I do last night? And she's like, I got home and you were paralytic and you couldn't walk. And And I think I went to maybe 2 or 3 more meetings, but I was off again for, probably 3 years. I didn't really take drugs as much. Before going to AA, I just would drink so much and smoke so much weed. And then after AA, I didn't really get back into the weed as much. I just was drinking like a fucking maniac. And like if there were drugs around, I would take them, but I sort of wanted to stay away from weed because I knew that I didn't want that to become a part of it as well. I was sort of happy just drinking and taking like pills or cocaine or whatever at a festival or at a party or whatever, but I didn't want weed to come back into my life, really. So I played that game, and the drinking got worse. Like I was drinking in the morning. I love drinking in the morning, like on an empty stomach, and getting hammered and, passing out by midday and sort of sleeping it off. So I was okay for work the next day. I was managing to make good money somehow. I don't know. I just powered through and didn't call in sick. And so I was making money, and I had the money to do it. And shit with Sarah and I was just, there was nothing there. We were just roommates, with kids. There was no love. There was no communication. There was nothing. And if the kids were in bed, I was out the back drinking. There was nothing there. There was nothing there. And anyway, we ended up calling it, and I moved into my own place, and I think that's when like the drinking just took off to a whole new level. And if I wasn't at work, that's all I was doing. I was just getting smashed and barely eating. Like eating, just the only reason I ate was to try and soak up alcohol so I wouldn't be as hungover the next day. And, if you drink a lot regularly, you're able to convince yourself that you're not hungover. You just feel like shit all the time until you get like a really bad hangover. And that's the only hangovers you get, and they're so rare. But I was hungover every fucking morning. I was useless. And so I got to a point last year on Hugo's birthday. I chose to rather than go and see him for his birthday, I chose to drink. I come home and I drank, and I had a fucking breakdown. And I was talking to my sister, and I was like, I've got to get back into recovery. I can't stop drinking. So I stopped drinking the next day. I haven't had a drink since then. But the next day I was calling up dealers to get weed because I needed weed to detox off of the alcohol so I could sleep, and so I had an appetite. And I think this time I had convinced myself a little bit in my head that was the truth. But I knew it wouldn't last. I was like, I can only smoke joints. As soon as I feel like I need to make a bong, I've got to stop smoking weed. And I didn't. And so to just turn straight back into a total stoner, just changed alcohol to weed. And then, on my birthday of that same year, I went to my dealer's house to get an ounce, and he found out it was my birthday, and he was like, have you ever tried these? And gave me 5 Xanax, and fuck me, man. Got home, and that was like, I felt like I'd wasted all of my life looking for that feeling of what the Xanax gave me. and I fucking loved it. And I just, you know, the next morning I had like one left, I think, and I couldn't remember anything. And I just was like hitting him up. I need more of those. And the more Xanax I got from him, then every now and then he would have Oxy as well. And trying Oxycontin was like that feeling all over again, was just like the best, because I just wanted to be unconscious. I didn't want to deal with life. I fucking hated myself. I hated my life. And I just wanted to be unconscious all the time. Like, get home, shut all the blinds, put my phone on silent, and nod out. Like, I didn't want to be alive. But I couldn't kill myself because I had kids and I couldn't do it to them. So yeah, I just went hard on the weed and you know, the prescriptions, and had a couple of close calls. I remember last Christmas, I had to sort of keep my shit together because I was with my family, and my mum was over from where I lived, and I didn't want her to see me, you know, fucked up on that shit. So I just got really high in the morning from weed, and, you know, just champing at the bit all day. Got home probably like 9 p.m. that night, and had an Oxy and then crushed up another one. You know, I really like to have them in lines so they would hit me immediately, but also have one with the coating still on that would give me that longer relief. I remember I woke up a few hours later on my back, just covered in vomit, and I, you know, basically woke up choking on my own vomit. So, but it didn't stop me. I just looked through my vomit to make sure there were no big chunks of pills, because I didn't want to waste any. And, you know, coming towards the end, that New Year's just gone, we went to a beach. I went with Sarah because I had the kids, and we all sort of hung out with some of their friends and their parents and stuff. And there's heaps of people on the beach, and they do fireworks. And I only did it for the kids, and anytime I was anywhere but home, all I wanted to do was be home and high. And I guess the fireworks happened, and just as they were about to end, someone said, "Where's Hugo?" And, you know, you hear that and you think, I didn't even think twice about it, because, you know, where could he be? He can't be too far away. And we couldn't find Hugo anywhere. And there's people fucking everywhere, man. And the fireworks stopped, so everyone started leaving. And it's pitch black, and there's fucking kids everywhere. And we're like, we can't find Hugo. And, you know, a few more minutes pass, and it starts getting to that point where we should have fucking found him by now, man. Like, he shouldn't be this far away that we can't find him yet. And I still remember so vividly thinking, I'm going to have to wait longer to get high. Now I'm going to have to wait longer to go home and get on. And the more time went on, you know, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I was fucking shitting myself about Hugo, but I was shitting myself as well that I was going to have to wait. And that never left. It took us about half an hour, 40 minutes to find him. And, and the whole time, the finding Hugo and getting high were like, you know, they were level, you know. Like, I was worried about finding Hugo and thinking, what the fuck's happened? Where the fuck is he? Has someone snatched him? Has he fallen over down these rocks? Or is he in the water? But there was never a point where I wasn't also thinking, I could be home, I could be high by now. Like, and it wasn't like a siren going off in my head going, your son could have got snatched by some fucking weird freak, you know, and all that shit was running through my head. He could be drowned, you know, and you're thinking about getting drugs or going home and getting high, and that's not a problem. Like, so yeah, I guess the next 2 weeks for me were like the beginning of the end. The pills, I still love them, but I wanted more. And they were getting so fucking expensive. And so I asked my dealer if he knew how to smoke heroin and, you know, could he show me how to smoke heroin? And I knew he could get it because he told me before that he would deliver to me a lot, and he'd been on a delivery beforehand and dropped some guys some heroin, and he rang me and he said, I'm never going to give you that shit. I'm never going to give you heroin. And I remember being so angry, and I was really fucked up. And I guess like that night I had my last rock bottom, which was, you know, just how shit my life had become and how much I wanted to kill myself, and really looking at why I wanted heroin, because I knew that smoking would never be enough. I knew I'd start banging it. I knew that was a way for me to kill myself that would be told to my kids when I was dead that your dad was sick and he overdosed, because no one would have told them your dad committed suicide by overdose, but that's what it was. That's what I wanted. I wanted to kill myself, but for my kids not to think that I'd done that. So the next morning I called up Narcotics Anonymous hotline because I knew that, you know, that little taste of recovery that I got with Alcoholics Anonymous and the steps, and I knew that was the solution. I knew the steps were the solution. I'm right into Russell Brand, and I'd read his books while I was using and watched all his videos, and I knew that for me the steps were my last fucking hope. It was either if, you know, my parents wanted me to go to rehab, and I just said, I want to try NA first because I know that that's probably going to work. And if it doesn't, then I'll try rehab. But if it didn't work, I was just going to kill myself. And, you know, I walked into a meeting and I was home. You know, the first dude that come up and spoke to me is my sponsor now, and he's fucking awesome. And, you know, there's some people in this meeting right now that I'm super close with, and you know, for me, the steps are just, they didn't just save my life, they gave me a new life, you know, like, to have hope is my biggest thing in recovery, is I never had hope. I remember thinking and saying to my dad, you know, not long ago that, you know, I'm 34 years old and my life's over. Like I've had my best times, and I believed it. I believed it. I didn't believe I could ever fix my life or stop using or have hope. Like I never thought I could look myself in the mirror and love who is looking back at me. And it's still a strange feeling, but it's I don't fight it anymore, man. Like I know that I'm fucking worth the struggle. And recovery's not fucking easy, and it hasn't been easy. It's been really fucking hard to not have that instant solution, you know? Like it's been really hard sometimes, some days, and I was cruising for the first 3 months, and I was loving it and smashing meetings, and then this fucking virus popped up, you know, like, and I think I was probably falling off the pink cloud before it happened, but it didn't fucking help, man. Like to not have, if I'm having a shit day, to not know in my head that I can go to a meeting tonight, I can get some hugs, I can get that relief that I need. And I'm so fucking lucky that my home group never fucking shut its doors. So I've had at least that one meeting a week that I need as someone in early recovery, because I really had to persist with the Zoom meetings. And I tell you, like, I'm so fucking, it was, you know, I believe my higher power put Dopey in front of me without a doubt. Because I never listened to podcasts, but I couldn't handle the radio anymore. I wanted to try something new, and I must have typed in recovery or something like that. And the first podcast I listened to was Dopey, and I'd never listened to anything else. Like, I'm nearly caught up, and these fucking Zoom meetings have just carried me. Like, you know, like Dopey has it's the relief that I get. Just hearing Dave's voice, feel like I'm sitting in the room with them and with my mates, and it's just, no matter the topic or the guest or anything like that, like especially when it was Chris and Dave, like it just was instant relief when I would hear them. And you know, it's a different sort of scene to Narcotics Anonymous, and that's good because I need that like little bit looser recovery sort of, and to hear other people's way of getting clean and having a better life. And because at the end of the day, you know, like, and obviously it's been a big topic this week, the whole alt recovery thing, and what does that actually mean? And it doesn't really even matter, you know, like my whole thing is, as long as people don't die and they're happy, I don't give a fuck what you do. But for me, it's all or nothing. Like I can't use anything and be happy. I have to do the steps, and I have to, I've got to be completely clean from any drug. And even then, I need the steps, or my life will be shit, because I truly have this disease in every sense. Like I'm so obsessive. I predict the future, and I'm reactive, and I think everyone's out to get me and talking about me, and I'm so riddled with guilt about everything that I put my kids through and Sarah. And if I want to move on and leave that shit in the past and help other people, because that's the aim of the game, is to give other people what I've got, you know. And I know that what I've got now is only going to get better and better and better, because I see it in the older cleaner members and I hear it in their shares. you know, and that's why recovery is such a beautiful thing, is because it lets you forget about yourself for a while and get the fuck over yourself and realize, like, if I'm helping someone else, that's helping me and my recovery. And it's just, for me, that is my truth, is when I'm able to put my shit aside and shut my mouth and listen to other people, and not just wait for my turn to speak, but just listen and wait for the next person to talk and the next person to talk, and not be worried about what am I going to say here so everyone hears how fucking wise I am. If I just keep my mouth shut, I'm going to get the message that when it's my turn to talk, when it's my turn to to be the messenger to the still suffering addict, that I know what to say, you know. And it's not because I'm smart, and it's not because I'm wise. It's just because I've listened. So, you know, I'm really grateful that I found the rooms. NA's my thing. The steps are my thing. But if it's not your thing, like, I still love every single one of yous, and I just want everyone to not be controlled by substances and not overdose or not be suicidal, like, be happy. And however you get there, it's not my business. If I'm asked, it's still not my business, but the only thing that I can recommend and suggest is what I know works for me, because I don't know any other way than complete abstinence, because I just can't. It's either every day, all day, or it's never. But that's just me, you know. So yeah, and, you know, in closing, like, I'm just so grateful for what Dave and Chris created, and I'm so honoured to be able to share my story. And you know, if if what Chris shared about is true, and he's hearing this and he's looking down, you know, I hope he's proud, man, like, of what he's had a hand in creating. And I don't feel like I could tell Dave enough how much he's been, and Dopey have been, and all you guys, every single day in those meetings, you know, whether you're regulars or not. You know, it's not just me, it's my kids, man. You know, all of you guys are a part of giving my kids their dad back. And that's all there is to it for me. Is I'm doing this for me, but that, you know, I can't. My kids will never not be a part of my recovery. My kids are a part of my higher power, and everyone in the Dopey Nation, Dave and Chris, like, I just can't say thank you enough. And obviously my fellowship, because without those things, I couldn't do it. I couldn't get clean and get happy and get hope on my own, because I tried to many times and I just couldn't do it. So I think with that, I'm gonna call it. So thanks you guys for listening to me and my story. And thank you, Dave and Chris, fucking oath, for what you've created with Dopey, man, because it's like nothing else, and it's helped me so fucking much. So yeah, that's me.
trying to detect, I'm trying to decree. Don't make it easier on me. Despise myself for what you've done. You sent me back into my world. So hold